The morning sky over New Eden was perfect blue, the kind of blue that made John Winters think moving his family to this colony 5 years ago was the right choice. He stood on his porch, coffee in hand, watching his children board the hover bus. To school. 10-year-old Kyle waved enthusiastically, while 8-year-old Lily blew a kiss before disappearing into the vehicle. "Be good today," John called out, though the doors had already closed. He smiled to himself, finished his coffee, and prepared for another ordinary day as a colonial administrator. John's office overlooked the central plaza of New Hope City, the main settlement on New Eden. Humans had lived peacefully among the stars for generations. The Galactic Crixian Empire maintained order across thousands of worlds, and humanity had prospered under their distant rule for over 3 centuries. "Morning, John," said Frank Miller, his assistant, placing a stack of data pads on his desk. "Colony expansion reports need your approval by noon." John nodded and settled into his work. New Eden was growing faster than expected. More families arrived each month, drawn by the promise of open spaces and clean air, rare commodities on the crowded Earth dot. Precisely 10:17 a.m., the sky darkened. John looked up from his desk to see massive ships crossing the sun. They were elegant, curved vessels with blue-green lights pulsing along their hulls, unmistakably Crixian in design. "That's strange," Frank said, joining him at the window. "The Empire never sends a fleet this size without notice." John's communication device buzzed. "Probably an explanation," he said, but the message wasn't from colonial authorities. It was an emergency alert from Kyle and Lily's school. The message was brief. Unknown intruders at school grounds. Lockdown initiated. Parents advised to stay away until authorities secure the area. John felt his heart stop. "I have to go," he said, already moving toward the door. "But the protocols say," Frank began. "Those are my children." John cut him off, breaking into a run. The streets were chaotic. People pointed at the sky where more Crixian ships appeared. Some were much smaller, descending toward the colony. John commandeered an official vehicle and sped toward the school, breaking every traffic law New Eden had. When he arrived, the scene was nightmarish. The school's security barrier had been breached. Parents gathered outside, held back by colonial police. Through the fence, John saw figures moving in the playground, tall, slender beings with pale blue skin and elongated heads. Crixians. They wore sleek armor that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. "What are they doing here?" A woman sobbed nearby. "Why are they taking the children?" John pushed to the front of the crowd and saw it then. Lines of small, unconscious bodies being carried onto a Crixian transport ship. Children. Human children. "Lily, Kyle!" he shouted, and without thinking, he charged the fence. He was halfway up when colonial officers grabbed his legs. "You can't go in there, sir. They've neutralized everyone who resisted." John kicked free and dropped to the other side, running across the open ground toward the Crixian soldiers. One turned to face him, eyes large and entirely black, set in a face that showed no emotion. The alien raised a small device. "Where are my children?" John demanded, but the words had barely left his mouth when pain exploded through his body. His muscles seized, and he collapsed onto the grass. Through blurring vision, John saw more children being loaded onto the ship. He thought he glimpsed Kyle's red jacket among them. He tried to call out, but his voice failed him. The darkness at the edges of his vision grew until it swallowed everything. When John regained consciousness, the Crixian ships were gone. He lay on a medical stretcher. In the school parking lot, now a makeshift emergency center. A medic noticed he was awake. "Easy, Mr. Winters. You took a heavy stun blast." "My children," John managed to say, his mouth dry as dust. The medic looked away. I'm sorry. The aliens took many children. We're still accounting for everyone. John forced himself to sit up despite the pain. All around, parents wept or stared blankly into space. Some screamed at colonial officials who had no answers to give. Why? John asked. Why would they take our children? No one could answer him. That evening, as darkness fell over New Eden, the colonial governor addressed the shattered community. The Crixian ships had left orbit. Similar abductions had occurred simultaneously on 3 other human colonies. We've received one communication from the Crixian emperor, the governor said, her face gray with exhaustion. It states only that select human juveniles have been requisitioned for the greater good of the empire. They refuse further explanation or dialogue. John sat among the other parents, a list clutched in his hand, confirming his worst fears. Both Kyle and Lily were among the missing. 217 children taken from New Eden alone. What are we going to do? Someone shouted. They can't just take our children. The governor looked defeated. We've sent urgent messages to Earth. The United Earth government is convening an emergency session. But the Crixians control faster-than-light communications. They're blocking our long-range signals. So we're on our own, John said, his voice hollow. For now, the governor nodded. But humanity won't stand for this, not even for the sake of peace. That night, John returned to an empty house filled with toys, small shoes, and uneaten breakfast cereal. He moved like a ghost through the rooms, touching Lily's stuffed elephant, straightening Kyle's collection of model spaceships. In Kyle's room, he found his son's journal. The last entry read, Dad says humans haven't fought a war in 3,000 years. Because we learned to be better than that. I'm glad we live in peaceful times. John closed the book and looked up at the night sky through the bedroom window. Somewhere up there, his children were afraid and alone. Not anymore, he whispered. To the stars. Peace is over. 3 months passed without answers. John Winters barely recognized himself in the mirror anymore. His eyes had sunk into dark circles, and he had lost weight. The photo of Kyle and Lily on his desk was the only thing that kept him going each day. Every morning, he joined the other parents at the Colonial Communications Center, hoping for news from Earth. Every evening, he returned home to silence. Today was different. The center buzzed with activity when John arrived. A woman stood at the front of the room, projecting images onto the large screen. She wore the uniform of United Earth Intelligence. My name is Susan Carter, she said. Her voice was steady, but John noticed her hands trembling slightly. 6 months ago, the Crixians took my son from our colony on Proxima B. I've been investigating. Ever since. John moved closer. Susan displayed documents marked with high-security clearances. The Crixian Empire has done this before, she continued. Not to humans, until now, but to at least 7 other species over the past millennium. Always. The same pattern. They take the young with no explanation. A man shouted from the back. What did those other species do about it? Susan's face hardened. Nothing. They were too afraid of the Empire's power. The room fell silent. Humanity had lived under Crixian peace for so long that the idea of challenging them seemed impossible. I found something else, Susan said, her voice lower now. Medical records from a Crixian research station. They're studying human genetics. Our children. Her voice broke briefly. Our children are test subjects. John felt the floor tilt beneath him. A hand steadied him. Frank Miller, who had come to the meeting with him. Why human children? Someone asked. Because we adapt, Susan answered. Human DNA mutates and adapts faster than any species the Crixians have encountered. They're particularly interested in children who haven't finished growing. John thought of Kyle and Lily strapped to examination tables, being cut open by cold Crixian hands. His grief turned to rage so intense it frightened him. That evening, an official message arrived from Earth. The United Earth government had called an emergency council meeting. Representatives from all colonies were invited to attend via secure channels. 2 days later, John found himself nominated to represent New Eden. The colonial governor had resigned after the abductions, unable to face the families. "You've become their voice," Frank told him as John prepared to join the transmission. "They trust you to speak for them." The council chamber on Earth appeared on screen. Hundreds of representatives filled the seats. At the center stood Admiral Peter Hayes, head of Earth's Defense Forces, a largely ceremonial position for the past few centuries. Hayes looked like, John felt, hollow with grief but burning with purpose. "My granddaughter was taken from Luna Colony," Hayes began without introduction. "I've spent my life studying the history of warfare, a subject most consider obsolete. Today, I ask this council to vote on something we haven't contemplated in 3,000 years. A declaration of war." Voices erupted across the chamber. War was a concept from history books. Humanity had joined the galactic community and given up organized violence generations ago. The Crixians have rejected all diplomatic efforts. Hayes continued once the noise subsided. 17 separate missions have been turned away from their space. They refuse to explain or negotiate. Susan Carter appeared on the screen next. She presented her findings about the genetic experiments. A doctor followed, explaining what these tests might mean. "The Crixians live for centuries," the doctor said. "Our research suggests they're using human genetic material to extend their lifespans even further." John's turn came to speak. He had prepared careful notes, but when the chamber fell silent, waiting for his words, he set them aside. "My name is John Winters," he said simply. 3 months ago, the Crixian Empire took my son and daughter while I watched helplessly. I've always taught my children that violence solves nothing. I believed in peace. Now I believe in getting them back, whatever it takes. The vote that followed wasn't unanimous, but it was decisive. After hours of debate, the council approved Admiral Hayes' proposal. Humanity would fight back. As the meeting ended, Hayes addressed John directly. "We need people like you, Winters. People with personal stakes. I'm reactivating Earth's defense fleet, ships that haven't left orbit in centuries." John frowned. "I thought we dismantled our warships when we joined the galactic community." Hayes' mouth curved in what might have been a smile. "Officially, yes. Unofficially, humanity has never quite trusted the peace. We've maintained a small fleet and continued research. Against regulations, of course. How long have we been preparing?" "For war in secret?" John asked. "Since the day we signed the peace treaty," Hayes answered. 3,000 years of peace doesn't mean 3,000 years of naivety. 2 weeks later, John stood in a massive underground facility beneath New Eden's mountains. The colonial administrator had been given a new title, Lieutenant Winters. Around him, ships were being outfitted with weapon systems that had supposedly never been developed. Susan Carter worked nearby, coordinating intelligence from other species who had lost children to the Crixians. She had formed a parents' coalition that spread across 3 star systems. "The Crixians think we're soft," she told John as they watched engineers prepare the fleet. "They think 3,000 years of peace has made us forget how to fight." John looked at the photo of Kyle and Lily he kept in his pocket. Their smiles still, bright and innocent. "They took the wrong species children," he said. Above them, the first warship humanity had activated in millennia hummed to life. Its name freshly painted on the hull, Redemption. 6 months after declaring war, humanity launched its first attack. The warship Retribution, dropped out of faster-than-light travel near a small Crixian outpost at the edge of Imperial space. Commander Olivia Reyes stood on the bridge, her hands steady on the control panel. She had never fired a weapon at another living being before. No human had for generations. Approaching the research station, her navigation officer reported. "No signs they've detected us." Olivia nodded. Intelligence suggested this facility held 36 human children. Not John's children, but someone's. That was enough. "Deploy the strike team," she ordered. "Remember, the children are the priority." John watched from his station as soldiers boarded the shuttle. He had trained for months, but wasn't ready for combat yet. Admiral Hayes had assigned him to communications, knowing his connection to the missing children would keep the mission focused. "Strike team away," John reported, his voice tight with tension. The Crixian station hung in space, a gleaming structure of curved metal and blue-green lights. It looked peaceful, beautiful even. John wondered how something so elegant could hide such cruelty. The human shuttle approached silently. Using technology the Crixians didn't know humanity possessed. Stealth systems developed in secret over centuries. "Boarding successful," came the team leader's voice. "Minimal resistance. They weren't expecting us." John relayed the information to Commander Reyes, who stood staring at the viewscreen, her face showing no emotion. Her nephew had been taken from Earth itself, snatched from a playground in broad daylight. 30 minutes passed in tense silence. The strike team moved through the station, neutralizing Crixian personnel with stun weapons. Then the message everyone was waiting for. "We found them. 28 children alive. 8 didn't make it." John closed his eyes briefly. Not all parents would get their children back. "Prepare medical for incoming," Commander Reyes ordered, "and download everything from their computers. We need to know what they were doing to those kids." The children arrived on stretchers. Most were unconscious. Some had visible surgical scars. All were pale and thin. John searched their faces, hoping against hope to see Kyle or Lily among them. They weren't there. A boy of about 12 was the only one fully awake. He sat up on his stretcher as medics examined him. "You came for us," he said to Commander Reyes. His voice sounded strange, older than his years. "They said no one would come." "We'll always come for our children," Reyes replied, taking his hand. "What's your name?" "Ethan," the boy said. "They changed us. All of us. They put things in our blood. In our brains." John moved closer. "Changed you how?" Ethan looked at John, then at the cup of water on a table 6 feet away. Without touching it, the cup slid across the surface and into the air, floating to Ethan's hand. "Like that," Ethan said simply. The journey back to the fleet was quick. The Crixian Empire had not expected an attack. Their defenses around minor facilities were minimal. 3,000 years of peace had made them complacent. That wouldn't last. Admiral Hayes met them when they docked with the main fleet, hidden in a nebula beyond Imperial sensor range. He reviewed the mission data personally. The attack was a success, he told the assembled officers. But the Crixians now know we're fighting back. Their response will come soon. The data from the research station revealed disturbing facts. The Crixians had been experimenting with human DNA, trying to unlock the secret of human adaptability. They were particularly interested in the brain development of children. "They're trying to extend their lifespans," the fleet's chief medical officer explained. "The Crixians already live for centuries, but they want more. Human children adapt faster than adults. Their genetic material is more flexible." John thought of Ethan moving the cup without touching it. Are they trying to give themselves psychic abilities? "It seems so," the doctor agreed. "The Crixians believe human children have latent abilities that their species lost long ago." 2 days later, The Crixian response arrived. A broadcast from the Emperor himself, transmitted across all human communication channels. The Emperor appeared as a tall, slender being with pale blue skin that seemed to shimmer with light. His eyes were entirely black, showing no emotion. Humans of Earth and colonies, the Emperor spoke in perfect English. Your unprovoked attack on an Imperial research facility is an act of war that breaks 3 millennia of peace. Return to your worlds and surrender those responsible, or face the consequences of defying the Empire. Admiral Hayes didn't hesitate to respond. Return our children, all of them, unharmed, and we will discuss peace. Until then, this is just the beginning. The Emperor's image flickered. Your children serve a greater purpose now. Their sacrifice will benefit the galaxy for eons to come. The transmission ended. John felt cold rage building inside him. Intelligence reports arrived from deep space probes. The Crixian military was mobilizing, ships gathering at key points throughout their territory. They had not fought a war in thousands of years either, but their fleet was vast. John received new orders the next day. He would join the crew of the Horizon, a stealth vessel designed for intelligence gathering. Their mission: locate the main research facility where the majority of human children were believed to be held. Susan Carter would go with him, along with parents from other colonies. Admiral Hayes believed their personal stake would drive them to succeed where professional soldiers might falter. Before departing, John visited the medical bay where Ethan and the other rescued children were recovering. Ethan sat alone, staring out a viewport at the stars. We're going to find the others, John told him, including my kids, Kyle and Lily. Have you sensed any other children with your abilities? Ethan turned slowly. All the time. They're calling to us. They're changing faster than I did. The Crixians don't understand what they've started. What do you mean? John asked. Ethan's eyes seemed to look through John rather than at him. The Crixians wanted weapons. They're creating something else entirely. A year into the war, John stood on an alien world far from human space. The air smelled like cinnamon, and the 2 suns made his shadow double on the red soil. Beside him, Susan Carter studied a handheld scanner. They're here, she whispered. Stealth ship Horizon had brought them to this neutral trading post on the edge of Crixian territory. For months, they had followed leads, raided smaller facilities, and gathered intelligence. They had rescued more children, but never Kyle or Lily. Today might change that. Their contact was not human, but Novali, a species with 4 arms and silver skin that had also lost children to the Crixians. The Novali approached cautiously. He wore a hood that covered his reflective face, but his 4 hands remained visible, to show he carried no weapons. You are the humans who fight the Empire, the Novali said. It wasn't a question. John nodded. We are. For 1,000 years, my people have mourned our taken young ones. We believed resistance was futile. Then we heard about humans. The Novali's voice had a musical quality, like wind chimes. You gave us hope. Susan stepped forward. You said you have information about our children. The Novali produced a small crystal, the main research center. It orbits the Crixian homeworld. Most of the human children are there, along with young ones from 11 other species. John took the crystal with trembling hands. This was the lead they had searched for across dozens of worlds. Why help us now? Susan asked. Because you showed it was possible to fight back, the Novali replied. And because the Crixians grow careless in their arrogance. The children they have altered are developing abilities that frighten even their scientists. John thought of Ethan, who could now move objects the size of small vehicles with his mind. The rescued children all showed similar developments. We are not alone, the Novali continued. Others wish to join your fight. The Catarans, the Vex Collective, the Durrani, Conclave, all have lost children. All have watched humans fight when they themselves were afraid. Back on the horizon, John transmitted the data to Admiral Hayes. The response was immediate. Return to fleet headquarters. A meeting of historic importance was being arranged. The human fleet had grown over the past year. Ships that had been hidden in secret facilities across human space now gathered in a distant system. They had won small victories, but the Crixian Empire was vast. Humanity alone could not defeat it. When they arrived at headquarters, John was surprised to find representatives from 12 different alien species waiting. Some he recognized from human space contacts. Others he had never seen before. Admiral Hayes addressed the gathering. For too long, the Crixian Empire has maintained peace through fear. They take our children, experiment on them, and expect us to accept it as the cost of their protection. Humanity said no. Now others are joining us. A tall being with bark-like skin stepped forward. The Durrani Conclave offers 50 ships to your cause. We have waited centuries for someone to challenge the Empire. One by one, representatives pledged support. Ships, weapons, intelligence. A coalition was forming, the Liberation Alliance. Meanwhile, Commander Olivia Reyes worked with Ethan and the other rescued children. Their abilities grew stronger. Each day, some could read minds. Others could see across vast distances. Together, they formed a network that could detect other captive children. They're suffering, Ethan told Olivia during one session. But they're also changing, like us. The Crixians don't understand what's happening. They wanted to use human genetics to extend their lives, but they've triggered something else. Can you reach my brother and sister? John asked when he visited. Kyle and Lily Winters? Ethan closed his eyes. The air around him seemed to shimmer. They are together. They're afraid, but alive. They know you're coming for them. John fought. Back tears. Tell them I'm close. Susan discovered another piece of the puzzle while analyzing Crixian communications. The Empire was built on a foundation of genetic theft. For millennia, they had harvested genetic material from species across the galaxy, using it to extend their lives and enhance their abilities. Their entire civilization depends on it, she explained to the Alliance leadership. The average Crixian lives for 800 years, but their natural lifespan is less than 100. They're genetic parasites. The coalition prepared for a massive attack. The plan was complex, simultaneous strikes on multiple Crixian strongholds to divide their forces. While the main fleet engaged the Imperial Armada, a smaller team led by John would infiltrate the research center. The night before the operation, a transmission broke through on all Alliance channels. The Crixian Emperor's face appeared, his black eyes somehow colder than before. Humans and their misguided allies, he began. Your rebellion has become an irritation. Know that we hold your children in our most secure facility. Any attack on the Empire will result in their immediate termination. The room fell silent after the message ended. Admiral Hayes looked around at the assembled leaders. He's bluffing, Hayes said finally. The children are too valuable to them. This means we're hurting them. It means we're close. A representative from the Vex Collective, a species that communicated through color patterns on their skin, flashed. Bright red. We cannot risk the children. Arguments broke out across the chamber. Some urged caution. Others insisted they press forward. The fragile alliance wavered. John stepped to the center of the room. I have 2 children held by the Crixians. I would die to save them. But if we back down now, the Empire will never stop taking children. Not from humans, not from any of your peoples. Susan joined him. The Emperor threatened us because he's afraid, not just of our ships, but of what the children are becoming. From the back of the chamber, Ethan walked forward. The other rescued children followed him. They moved as one, their eyes focused on something no one else could see. The children in the facility heard the Emperor's threat, Ethan said, his voice eerily calm. They're ready. They've been waiting for us. They want us to come now. How can you know this? Asked the Durrani representative. Ethan looked at him with eyes that seemed much older than his young face. Because we can all hear each other now. All the children. Across the stars. John felt a chill run down his spine. What are you saying? The Crixians wanted to use us, Ethan said simply. Instead, they've changed us. And now we're ready to change everything. The Crixian homeworld glowed blue-green against the black of space. John had never seen anything so beautiful or terrifying. His infiltration team's small ship approached the massive research station that orbited the planet. The main alliance fleet was engaged elsewhere, drawing away the bulk of Crixian defenses. We're approaching the blind spot in their sensor grid, Susan said from the pilot's seat. Stealth systems at maximum. Their team included 6 human parents and 4 representatives from other species of the Alliance. All had lost children to the Crixians. All were willing to die to get them back. John checked his weapon. He had never imagined becoming a soldier. Now, after 18 months of war, it felt like he had always been one. Remember, he told the team, our priority is the children. All the children, not just our own. They docked with the station using access codes provided by Alliance intelligence. The first Crixian guards they encountered fell quickly to stun weapons. The team moved deeper into the facility, following maps based on data from previous raids. The station was enormous, with curved hallways that spiraled inward. They encountered surprisingly little resistance. This feels wrong, Susan whispered as they approached the central section. Where are all the guards? They found out when they reached a large circular chamber. 20 Crixian soldiers waited, weapons ready. Behind them stood a tall figure John recognized from transmissions, the Crixian Emperor himself. Humans, the Emperor said, his voice almost musical. So predictable in your attachment to your offspring. We knew you would come. John raised his weapon, but Susan put a hand on his arm. Look around, she whispered. The chamber walls were transparent, revealing hundreds of cylindrical tanks. Each contained a child floating in clear liquid, eyes closed, tubes connected to their small bodies. John searched frantically until he found them. Kyle and Lily, side by side in adjoining tanks. They looked older, changed. How long had it been in human time? Almost 2 years now. Your children have served a greater purpose, the Emperor continued. Their genetic material has advanced our research by centuries. Soon we will unlock the secret to unlimited lifespan. You've been stealing children for thousands of years, John said, his voice shaking with rage, using them like resources. The Emperor's black eyes revealed nothing. Lesser species exist to serve the Empire. This is the natural order. Your rebellion changes nothing. A Crixian scientist approached the Emperor, whispering urgently. The Emperor's expression changed slightly, the first emotion John had seen on a Crixian face. Suddenly, the lights in the chamber flickered. The liquid in Kyle's tank began to bubble, then Lily's, then others across the chamber. What's happening? The Emperor demanded. The scientist backed away from the tanks. The subjects are showing increased brain activity. All of them, simultaneously. Inside her tank, Lily's eyes opened. Kyle's followed. Then, like a wave, children throughout the chamber awakened. Their eyes were different, glowing with a soft blue light. Ethan warned you, John said, understanding now. The children have changed, but not how you wanted them to. The Emperor backed away, increased the sedation, immediately. The Crixian soldiers moved toward control panels, but stopped suddenly, frozen in place. Their weapons floated from their hands, hovering in the air before clattering to the floor. The liquid drained from Kyle's tank. The glass slid open. He stepped out, unsteady at first, then with growing confidence. He looked at John, but his eyes were those of a stranger. "Dad?" Kyle said, his voice echoing strangely. "You came." Lily emerged from her tank next. She took Kyle's hand. "We knew you would." John wanted to run to them, to hold them, but something held him back. "What did they do to you?" "They tried to use us," Lily said, "but they didn't understand what they were unlocking." Throughout the chamber, tanks opened. Children of various species emerged. Human, Novali, Durrani, and others John didn't recognize. They moved with eerie coordination, as if parts of a single organism. The Emperor tried to flee, but an invisible force held him in place. "You took us from our families," Kyle said, approaching the Emperor. "You hurt us, changed us. But now we're something new." Outside the station, Alliance ships broke through the remaining Crixian defenses. Admiral Hayes' voice came through John's communicator. "Extraction team, what's your status?" John couldn't find words to describe what he was seeing. The children gathered around the Emperor, who for the first time showed an emotion John recognized: fear. "What are you going to do?" The Emperor asked. "End your empire," Lily said simply, "and build something better." The children raised their hands in unison. The Emperor collapsed to his knees, clutching his head. Around the station, alarms blared as systems failed. Throughout Crixian space, according to reports that flooded in later, their technology simply stopped working. The children had accessed the Crixian network with their minds, shutting down the systems that had kept the Empire in power for millennia. 5 years later, John stood with Kyle and Lily at the new Alliance headquarters on Earth. His children were teenagers now, different from the small kids who had boarded a school hover bus. That morning, long ago, their abilities had stabilized, but never disappeared. Kyle could still move objects with his mind. Lily could read thoughts from across a room. Together with the other changed children, they formed a kind of council that helped guide the new Alliance of Species. "Do you ever wish it hadn't happened?" John asked them as they watched ships from a dozen worlds dock at the orbital station above. "That you could have had normal lives?" Lily smiled, looking more like her old self than usual. "We wouldn't be who we are now." Kyle nodded. "The Crixians thought they were using us to extend their lives. Instead, they gave the galaxy a new beginning." The former captive children had become a bridge between species, their shared experience, and abilities creating understanding where none had existed before. They called themselves the Connected, neither human nor alien, but something new. The last Crixian research facility had been converted to a memorial and school. Children from across the galaxy studied there, learning about the peace that had come at such a cost. John still saw the administrator. He had once been in his dreams, the man who believed in peace at any price. That man was gone, replaced by someone who had learned that some things were worth fighting for. Was it worth it? Susan Carter asked, joining them at the viewport. Her son stood with a group of Connected nearby, teaching younger children to control their abilities. John watched Kyle and Lily join their friends. They would always carry scars from what had been done to them, but they had survived. They had transformed, and they had changed the galaxy forever. "Ask me again in another 3,000 years of peace," John said. "A real peace this time."